And I think that the reason that they did that and how they accomplished that is by creating a caring environment. And so when I say caring environment, what I mean is that they really cared about me as a person. They cared about me as an athlete, but they cared about me as an individual. They reached out to me in ways beyond just an athlete. They also created an environment that was very family-oriented. We were part of their family and they were part of our family, and that extended to our parents. And so we had this opportunity to be part of a bigger family. And the coaches also, both Barbara and Marianne, were very influential in helping me develop different life skills, respect, support for others, caring for others. And they also taught me a few life lessons and cared enough to teach me those lessons outside of sport. So I learned things like teamwork, and I learned things like honesty and integrity as well from having participated. And so I'm in forever debt to those coaches for the positive experience that they provided me. But you may not be surprised that in that same survey where they talked to coaches and they asked coaches, what is one of the biggest problems that is facing youth sport today? And 78% of the coaches said coaching behavior. And so they said that that was problematic. And more recently, there was an ESPNW as well as Aspen Institute survey that was done that asked parents, what is the biggest concern within youth sport? And 60-some% of parents said the quality or the behavior of coaches. And so that coaches are of a concern. And so what we have is coaches who are really interested, I think, and have their heart in the right place, and they want to instill positive life skills and teach life lessons to youth. But I think that there are also a lot of structural, cultural, and personal factors that are getting in the way. Some of those things that I think that are taking place is some of the things that Jay's already talked about, this notion of the professionalization of sport. I think there's also this notion of the over-regulation of sport coming into play. Also, coaches living vicariously through their players, and many of them are coaches who they're living through their child athlete, and so that you have that component that is also playing a role. And so there are a variety of issues that are important that we talk about in terms of how youth sport is structured today and how it may have been different from how it was when we experienced the youth sport environment. And so I think it's important that we start to address those issues. But I also think it's wise that we begin to help coaches navigate this brave new world of youth sport. There are some things that structurally and culturally I'd like to see changed, and I hope we move in that direction. But one of the things that I think plays a role in that is that the stakeholders need to change. And one of those stakeholders is the coaches. And so to a large extent, I believe that coaching education can play a role by providing coaches with the tools for their toolbox to either help them navigate this new world or potentially inoculate them against it. And then to also raise their consciousness about what we're trying to do within youth sport. I believe youth sport has the positive accolade in terms of being able to move us forward and help develop young people. One of the things that I'm interested in terms of looking at that is not only this notion of the caring climate, but the concept of a MOOTU, that what we're trying to do is that we are trying to help people become better people through people. So a person becomes a person through other persons. And so trying to utilize that concept to create a developmental model for looking at youth sport. And so I'm hoping that we can have an opportunity to talk about these new models and paradigms as we move forward.
Jerry. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jerry Smith. I'm in my 29th season here as the women's soccer coach at Santa Clara University. The university also started a new academy here, which I feel very honored they put in my name, the Jerry Smith Coaching for Life Academy. And the Coaching for Life Academy mission really is to greater educate parents, players, coaches on kind of the more important aspect of coaching, which is the teaching of life skills and the building of self-esteem with the young people from which we work. And so I've certainly enjoyed and had the great honor of playing for many great youth coaches. And I would agree with what Lori has said, that as coaches, we have a great responsibility and a great opportunity to influence lives. So many of my most influential people in my life growing up were my coaches. I can specifically name Marty Matheson, my high school basketball coach at Homestead High School. He really did a great job of teaching me, building my self-esteem for sure, showing tremendous care for me and kind of my goals that I had in my youth, and taught me a lot more than just basketball, and how to be a good person, how to be a positive member of my community, how to make my teammates better. And I think these are some of the more important things that coaches need to be reminded of sometimes. Certainly here at Santa Clara University, we've done our share of winning here. I've been fortunate enough to coach in the Final Four 10 times, and that's really remarkable. But I can honestly say that in all the successful teams that we've had here, I'm very, very proud that we have a 100% graduation rate, that we have kids that are, very good citizens. They've learned great life skills that have helped them go on after college to be successful. My job here as the college soccer coach is to help prepare them for life after college. And while skill acquisition and tactical awareness are certainly important aspects of what we do, otherwise we're going to not achieve our goals that we have on the field. But at the same time, I'm very conscientious of making sure that I prepare the students for success after college, and that's probably more important to me. And I don't want to bore you with all the gory details of all the students that we've had here and what they're currently doing, but suffice to say I'm very proud of those students and the skill sets that they learned and are applying now in their happy, productive lives. There's no greater reward to a coach than getting a letter from a former student, 10, 20, 30, and for me now, almost 40 years of coaching, to get that letter out of the blue thanking you for all that you did for that young person. That's the greatest reward you can have as a coach. And I still hear back from so many of my former players. I'll just give you one quick story. My first year in coaching, I was 16 years old, and I was a student at Homestead High School. And my high school coach, Jack Salamini, was the president of the Sunnyvale United Soccer Club. And he said, Jerry, I've got a under 12 boys team. We've already selected the comp team, and they have a coach. We selected what's called the in-house team, which is the rec team, and they have a coach. But I have 9 boys left over who don't have a place to play and don't have a coach. Would you be willing to coach this team? And that was my first foray into coaching. And we recruited a couple of other boys, one of who had never played soccer before, and we had a team. And of course, we played in the recreational league, and we set some goals before the season. And I can tell you that we accomplished all of the goals that we set for ourselves in an 0-10 season. So we were 0-10. And the first kind of ethical dilemma for me in coaching was that season. We had lost our first 9 games, and in the 10th game, the last game of the season, for the first time, we were winning at halftime. We were winning the game 2-0 at halftime. Now we have a standard kind of rotation of putting boys onto the field and other boys off and changing positions. And so now we're leading the game at halftime, and as the halftime whistle blows, I see a couple of the parents kind of talking among themselves and then start walking toward me. And so I had an idea of what was coming, and of course, they were trying to make a case for not making our normal rotation and go with the team that we still have out there. And wouldn't that be great for the boys to win, to finish their last game on a winning note? And yes, it would be, but at what cost? And what message does it send to the other boys? And what were the goals that we set at the beginning of the season? And is it in line with those goals? So I'm very proud to say we stuck with our rotation. We stuck to our goals. We lost the game. The boys had a great experience. And one of those boys recently sent me a wonderful letter about that day. And that's the more important stuff. Winning, certainly we want to win. There's no question. That's what we're trying to do. But it's got to be in line with other more important goals and objectives that you have for your team and your student athletes. And so it's confusing. It's complicated. And I can honestly say that I don't get it right as much as I would like to. But that's why I love being a part of panels like this, so I can learn and we can share and we can all move in a forward direction.
So let's stay on that. What I have come to think of as the coach's inherent conflict of interest, and the youth sports entrepreneurs who actually make money if they can keep kids playing baseball year-round or soccer year-round. But even coaches that don't have a financial interest, there is that conflict of interest. If my team wins, I look good. I'm a good coach. And that may mean that I'm not doing everything I can for all the players. I'd love to hear what people think about that conflict of interest and how deep it is, how we deal with it.
Well, we haven't dealt with it adequately. I think that one of the things we haven't realized is that when the livelihood of an adult and that adult's family depends on the performance of an 11-year-old during a gymnastics meet, there can be this conflict of interest that Jim's talking about. And if that 11-year-old has a stress fracture from hitting the vault a little bit too hard, hundreds of times over the past few months, what is that coach going to do? Because the reputation of his club or her club depends upon the performance of that person in this particular tournament. And that's just one example of cases where that kind of tension exists. So how to have coaches make the right developmental decision under those circumstances is a really difficult thing. The other thing is that parents are oftentimes looking at things in terms of their own investment in their child, and their moral worth as parents depends upon what their child achieves, because then they can tell other people, and that makes them a good parent as a creator of this